Hey, my name is Daniel Groves, and in this video I'll go through what our current state of our ERT tool is, our integration regression tool is, what we have done in a way that allow you to minimize the risk of changes on your system and make it a lot faster to do these kind of things. So let's just first start with why testing is important. So around 35% of all development cost is for testing, so it is one of the important parts of your development cycle to account for. And one in SAP perspective, I think this is much the same, except in the phase where you want to do a bug fixing or support package, because there would be a lot more testing and regression to make sure that the change that you make actually works and does not impact anything else. So that is really the place where testing costs the most compared to what else you have. So the normal way that an SAP PI developer would test is, this is a scenario where you get like a bug fix you want to fix. This is, you log on to the productive system, find the same ICO, find messages that have been saved in the process. He would then download the source and the target from the monitoring tool. He would send a test message in on the test system, download the output file, verify that it looks identical, and then he'll just repeat it for all the different messages and tests you want to run to ensure that it looks identical. And well, it becomes quite tedious and a lot of different work on ensuring that this works as you want it to. So why do you want to automate this? So automation allows you to, for instance, install a support package or patch with less effort. So a lot of times customers say, well, we want to patch our system, and the effort of testing together with business and developers is just too difficult. It's much easier to get a tool that can run these things in one simple manner. It will ensure that your mappings, user-defined functions, and adapters would not break any of the existing functionality. And then it ensures that transports work by testing all the different objects that has been delivered. So if you have running this on your test system, you can show that everything works as it is expected to be. So there is two different ways of creating test cases. So there is the general recording tools like HP UFT, IBM Rational, that is like a flexible way. Well, really flexible. You have programmatically, you can push a SOAP message, you can download a file and look up data. And this gives you, or do some screen recordings that you want to push in. This does give you a good flexibility, but it gives you a long setup time to ensure that everything is as it's expected to be. And you need to learn a programming language to set up all of these steps and the coding involved in it. With a specific record replay tool as IRT, it's much simpler. You can just select a test set, create test cases for it, and run these tests. But there's obviously something that's not covered in this, and this is the part where you are doing something that happens outside of the PO stack, or it does not really cover communication. So if you're sending a message out, ERT would not care about it, just that it's being delivered, nothing more. So why do you want to use it? You want to use it to check everything works before applying, when applying support packages, when making changes in a mapping, and make sure that nothing else is affected. For migration purpose projects, it makes a lot of sense because there's a lot of code and some of these things will change and you need to test all of them to ensure that nothing is breaking. And then you want to reduce the risk in your project, and I think that's a key component. Really know what you have tested and how long you are in the development process. So how does IRT work? So you simply select from a list of objects in your repository, you select which one you want to do recordings on. Then IRT would log onto your productive system. It could be in a system, so when you're evaluating this, you probably want to connect this to a development system. Then IRT would add modules in the beginning and end of the processing chain, and these modules is really lightweight, so they don't have a large performance impact of your system when they're added. Then when a message is processed, it will then be saved. So if you're saying you want next 5 messages, they will be saved, and you can then collect these for later testing. And then you just have to wait until you've received all the different messages that you want to receive. And then you come to the testing phase. Here you just say, well, we got a set of test cases. You want to run them. And what it will do is it will create a communication channel, an XI30 communication channel. And the benefit of this is we're actually able to reuse the same ICO as you already have created, with the same operation mapping and the same objects below it. So this makes it really simple to do running of these things. And if you have modules, we can also add the modules and ensure that they work the same way. Then you want to compare the output and want an easy way to figure out what are the differences, so provide this UI for it. And if you know, okay, this date is being changed every time, you just want to ignore it, you can simply just click on it. It will give you an XPath expression, and once you say add, next time you're running this test, this would not be seen as an error. So you would only see the things that really matters, and the same is true for dynamic attributes. So what's covered? Sender modules, routing, mappings, receiver modules, dynamic properties, and synchronous messages. And the thing that's not really covered is communication outside of the Java system, so SOAP, IDOC calls. And also, if you have file content conversion, they are not covered either, unless you have them in as modules. And then lookup is not cached either. So if you have lookups and you getting some different responses back, then you probably want to add those into the ignore list. So IRT is a simple tool that allows you to test complex scenarios. But let me just first show you how this actually works. So here we have the IRT tool. And when I go on here, I can actually see a list of all the different objects that I have on my system. So if I find, there's a scenario here. And we will then say, so we have selected some messages here. We want to create a test case from this. And we'll create a new template. So a template is a way to group these tests together. So if you have, for instance, a finance test, you want to group them together. You have sales, delivery. It's just a way to make it easier to understand. And then you can run these and give different people responsibility for it. And a test case can be in multiple of these test cases. So we're creating a new template. We want 3 messages for each. We can set up messages and partners. So if you want a specific way of identifying this, we can specify it with XPath in these ones. So if you have EDIFACT messages, you could put the seller information in here. If you had company codes where you're doing rollouts, then you may want to put in your company as or partner as the company code. That way you can see how many test cases you got for each company code. And if you're recording like 1,000 messages, and only one is from one company code, this is a good way to ensure that you got some test cases from all company codes to give you faster testing capabilities. So now we have created our recording request, and then we just have to start it. And then starting would then send a message to this component saying, hey, download the messages and all the information that you want from it. And we can just then sit back, wait until it has processed these amount of messages. And obviously this can take some time if it's something that runs seldom, but in most cases you should get your messages, or you know when you're getting the messages. So now, at least for one of them, we can see we have received some messages, and now for the other one. So what we want to do is we want to create a new test case for this. So we're creating, so right now we've just collected the message, but it's not really a test case yet, so we can change how many messages we want, but now we want them all. And then we'll just throw away the last ones if we just want whatever for each of these. So now we have our messages here, and we can then see what are the configurations of these things. So we can see, just delete these parameters. We have the option here of setting a parameter to run with modules on the sender side. If we want to use the BGP splitter, we can also define it here. And if we don't want to send a message after it has been tested, you probably want to set it here. So if you're communicating with partners and don't really want to send them all the test data, you just set this flag and they will not receive the message. So we will go back, and then we will run this. So we can just say run. And this will run all the things inside this template, but we can also just run an individual message. And this run would then send the message in, wait until it gets a response back, and then it will start comparing these results. So let's see if we got something here. Oh, don't want to rerun. Oh well. So we can see here now one with an arrow. That's probably the most interesting thing. So we can view the results here, and here we can see what are the differences. We can see here our difference as a time difference. We want to ignore that one. So now that has been updated, and next time we run it, it will be successful. So it's the same message that's being delivered to these two things. And if there were changes in dynamic attributes, we would also be able to see those. And then we can see all the different payloads and stuff like that. So this gives us a really good idea about what was done here, and we can get these delivered. So we can, so here, let's just check it's done. So now we have a report here. We can download the report. Just open an Excel document. So on all the different test runs, you got an Excel run, so you can see what was the difference we had in this area. How many errors do we have, and we have linked to all the messages and IDs and stuff like that. So this gives you really a good way of monitoring these different things. And you can run the system, get the data from one system, run it to another system. So we have a mapping system that allows to map these different namespace or systems that you have in an easy way. Good. So that was ERT. We also have the option, if you want to integrate it with UFT, then you want to create the test case as baseline. And what baseline means is, once you're sending in the message, so the way it works is you create a recording, then you want to run the UFT script that creates all the messages for the UFT. Then you want to create a test case, but for that's baseline. And then once you want to run this UFT script or end-to-end script, you then first trigger the recording of the ERT. Then you want to trigger the creation of the iDocs in the SAP system. And then once you have done that, you want to call the ERT module again and say, hey, get me the results. And if it's not complete, then you'll just get a uncompleted. And once it's done, you'll either get a success or failure that you can then use in your report. So that's our cloud, our normal testing. The other one we have is the ability to do testing of cloud integration. And well, this is quite new. I think we added a month ago, started working on this. So this is something that's going to change a lot over the coming period of time, but we're not just seeing some of the power and the flexibilities of these things. So in general, you have the cloud integration. Now you have the ability to set it into trace mode, and this would allow us to record all the different messages of all the different steps in this process. The downside is it can only happen for 10 minutes on your system, but it can happen on a productive system. For some scenarios, for instance, HTTP, we are able to reuse your existing scenario because we can just create a similar package that you're receiving. If you have, for instance, a scheduled or an iDoc, we are not able to trigger those automatically. So for those, we would have to do a copy and create a new component of it and run it with that. And that makes it a little easier to do, and we will probably add the ability so you can either use your scheduled or have an HTTP call in with a specific parameter. Then we would find this one and reuse it. That's future development on this. But let me just show you what it looks like. So we are back here, and oh, we don't want to synchronize that one. We want to see this one. So here we have our ERT system, and we want to do a new recording. So we just select the system we want. We have a recording, and we will add it to the video demo we created. Video demo scenario. We want to capture 2 messages. So we create the request. Then we want to start recording messages for it. So we record the messages, and then let me start sending some messages in. And we got another message. Then now we have processed these two messages, and what we then need to do is want to check the result of the remote messages. And this does take a little while to fetch all these, but we can see we now got 12 messages of a total of 1 kilobyte. Yes, we want to download these. So now we have created the payloads and the test data just as we want it to be. And then we can go in, so we can see our linked test cases. Oh, we want to create a test case, create the test case for this. This is type regression, so here we can see we also had the option of selecting baseline. But regression is the one that allow you to just test without adding new systems to it. So we can then say run template. Oh, then we are running all the things on this. That's maybe a little too much, let's see. So we can view these test cases we have for this one. We can see that it is being processed. And if we have a look at our cloud integration system, we can then see that these has been processed right now. These are the copy that we have created of the scenario, and here's the original scenario that we have. So if we go here, we can say check for remote messages. It's also able to do that in background jobs. And then it will download the messages, and then it will schedule them for comparison. So you get the same way of comparing these as you have with all the other events. So here you can see the full flow. What are the different things that happens in this flow? You can see the view the results of these messages, and here we have all the different attributes that is interesting for these for this scenario. So let's see if it's compared. So we can see we got successful comparison of these things now. But this is just the different steps into the flow. And if you go into the cloud thing and look into trace, you can then see the different steps here. So this is just the same way we are mapping the data in our new flow that we have created. And we will be able to do the same comparison, JSON, EDFACT, X12, whatever you name it. It all works quite smoothly. So I just wanted to share a little about our roadmap and what we are planning on creating for these things, because I think this is one of the cool things that we're working on. And actually, when I talk about roadmap, it's 1 or 2 month time. It's not years as someone else roadmap is. So we're quite agile developing these things to follow customer needs and what they are looking for. So our goal with this is to have one central place where we're able to encounter all things in your SAP system. So we would capture alerts in the component-based message alerting. So for instance, if you have a message mapping that fails, a communication channel that fails, you want to capture what are the changes that you need to do for to solve this issue. And you want to capture that. We're calling it a ticket, but you probably want to use the ticket as a placeholder instead of your real ticketing incident system. But it gives you a good way of handling all the development objects that you have. Then you want to do your development, change your mapping and modules, whatever needed to solve the issue. Or you can create the ticket based on a business requirement and do development directly. Then you want to assign these different objects that you have to the ticket. So once you have defined your objects, we are able to calculate what are the different affected objects. So you can go in, add a message mapping, and then the system would then calculate, okay, if you're adding this message mapping, then I know these are the different ICOs that are affected. And it will then say you got test cases for 2 out of 3 of these. And then you would get more information about what to test whenever you're doing a change, instead of just hoping you know where this object is used. And then we got the ability to figure out with transports, how do we handle these different transports. So if you add an object to a transport, then you probably also need it in the ticket or something like that. So some of the components we already have. So we have the incident based. This is the thing that allow you to collect all the alerts, fetch them, and then set up a rule for it quite easily. So you get an XPath that says, hey, if this action occur, then we can do some things. So then you would create your ticket, you would assign the directory objects, repository object that makes sense for this, and what are the tests you need to make in the different systems for it. And you probably want to integrate this with your existing ticket system, whatever business is using. You probably just want to export this or give links to this the status from your ticket system. So in your ticket system, you would keep the status of what's going on, but in the PI system, you would then more have the real factual value, because a lot of times when you have done changes, you're not really updating the right things into the right data. With this tool, so with our change tracking tool that is part of the system, you are able to see. So the way you would say, okay, this one I want to assign to a certain ticket, and then you can assign it to it. But let's just have a look at, for instance, this one. So this is a message mapping that I've updated, and I don't know quite what is the difference in this. So we can both compare the outer, and this would just say, hey, there's something has changed. But we can also compare the payload, and this is really interesting in this case. And here we can see there's some part of this other mapping that has changed. And the thing that has changed is the other mapping has been combined with a concat and constant value. So there's been some changes to this. Probably this will be updated to make it a little easier to read, at least for the message mappings. But this gives you a deep comparison of all objects, communication channels, and stuff like that, so you can see what was actually changed. Then the change tracking tool, we saw that one. We are also considering making integration tests with other systems. So you can, if you have a non-SAP PI, PO, or cloud integration system, we can set up testing, but under the assumption you can download the messages in some format and rerun the test in some similar format. Ask if this is something you want, then we will find a solution that enables us to do that for you. Some of our customer stories, Anadarko Petroleum, they wanted to do an upgrade of their PI system, and normally this is something that requires a lot of input from business to ensure that we got all data and everything works out correctly and everybody needs to sign off on it. So it's something that takes forever. And what they did was they were able to set up test cases for 300 ICOs in 2 or 3 weeks. And they split this out to 55 templates. And then they scheduled these templates to run at night. They ran it before and after upgrade just to ensure that everything looked okay. And then they got the business to sign off based on the Excel reports to show them this is what we have of data. And this saved them a lot of time for the upgrading, because they didn't have to go out and test with all the different business users and ensuring that their scenario now worked. They were using HP ALM for storing these Excel documents in. And then they had some Python scripts to run these different test cases. And all the UI is REST-based, so you can also create your own ways of running these things. And download the Excel reports. AkzoNobel is another customer that has used this, and they're using it in a migration project. So they have a legacy middleware they want to get rid of, or non-SAP, and they're using it to verify that the transports works as expected. So here consultants would create a test case on the development system and transport it into the transport system of IRT, and then once their support partner or service partner has also transported objects, configured them correctly, they would run these tests to verify that everything has been set up correctly. So it's a part of their delivery strategy, and that's also what triggered me to think, well, we could actually support the full process of PI delivery. So there's some different versions. There's a free version that allow you to have 10 ICOs. There's a single user license also, if you just have some small scenarios. And then you got the Pro and Enterprise versions for bigger customers. There's 20% maintenance and support, including upgrades, which is quite important because there's quite a lot of new features that we're releasing to do these things and get customers to adopt these changes. And in the enterprise version, we're adding this continuous development, DevOps, developer-focused lifestyle of these things. And you can run the test on multiple different systems, so you can have one test, you can run it on 2 different systems and ensure that it works. So ERT, it's a simple tool that supports your development process. So I hope you want to learn more about what we can do. You can go to figaf.com/IRT, and do notice that we do a lot of development, and it's happening quite fast. So yeah, if you're watching this and it's half a year old, this video, then there's probably been some changes to these things, and that's one of the cool things about creating this, that we can actually deliver this in a lot more flexible way. So go to figaf.com/IRT and check out the latest news. Yeah, and download it and try it out on your own system. It's free to start using it, and there's a free package for some of the scenarios and features. So I hope you want to try that out. Thank you.